Hey guys, what's going on? It's the NRL Fantasy Fanatic coming at you with NRL Supercoach round number 7 from round number 6. In this video, we're going to be covering a few things. The Harry Grant saga from last week, Nathan Cleary, the major trade-ins, the major trade-outs, what our team is doing, how is it going in comparison to team number 1, and where do we find ourselves on the ladder. So, if I start with the ladder, which is where are we on the ladder, we've dropped about 2,000 ranks. In fact, we did drop down a little bit further than what I wanted to drop. We scored 1,060 last week, and we dropped, there we go, 1,800 or so ranks, back to 2,717. It seems as though a lot of teams out there are scoring huge, even at 1,060, which if you go back 5-6 years ago, that would have been a really great fantasy, not a great fantasy score, a really great Supercoach score. Is now below average. Like, if you just look at the top teams right now, have a quick scroll through them, you know, we're seeing a lot of 1,200s, a lot of 1,300s. You need to keep pumping out those big scores, and hopefully you've made all the right decisions at the first part of the season in those first 6 rounds in order to ensure you have the right cashies, converting them into guns or higher scorers, and now you're kind of liberating your team and your rank up the ladder. Sometimes it's not always going to work out well. You're going to have those rounds where it's going to bounce. Sometimes you're going to have a HIA, one of your players is going to go down. You'll make a poor captain's choice, and that can be the difference between being at the greater or the higher of the 10% mark and then being in the 20 to 40% mark with everyone else. But if you look at the highest scoring team, 1,498th, absolutely amazing. Went up 19,000 ranks. So that just goes to show you how close Supercoach is this year and how you have to stay on top of your game in order to ensure that you're getting the most maximum out of your team. Now, the first thing we looked at last week, and the major point we looked at last week's video, was bringing Harry Grant. We said it had to happen. And what we said was across the season, Harry Grant will be scoring on average probably 20 to 30 more points than the average hooker each game, in and out, and over a season that's going to just build up to hundreds of points, and that you'd be missing out on if you didn't have him. So first week in, let's have a look what actually happened. Like, we're only taking a 1-week sample size. Harry Grant, we brought him in for Reed Marnie. Marnie did go up in price. Marnie got 83. He is absolutely of less value by almost $200,000. The 3 points doesn't quite cut the mustard. However, Harry Grant did go up $22,000. So if you're looking at growth of a team by value, the Harry Grant trade was better. Not only that, but I don't think, going off the last couple of scores of Reed Marnie, we're expecting him to be more in the 50, possibly lower 60 range, where Harry Grant, exceptional scorer, just putting out those big numbers each week, in and out, totally dependable to get you those scores. So I honestly think it's the right choice. Yes, Damien Cook did score a hat-trick, which is absolutely insane because Damien Cook has never scored a hat-trick. In fact, I can't remember the last time he even got 2 tries or 2 meat pies in a single game. But is that likely to happen every game? I had a comment, someone saying, oh, you should have gone Damien Cook. But look, I don't think Damien Cook's going to be scoring 3 tries every game. I don't think we'll see that ever again in this season, let alone the next couple of seasons from Damien Cook. Could happen. But if we do take away that, if that's 16 points each, 16, 32, 48, if we take away that 48 from his base, all of a sudden, Harry Grant would have been the highest scorer. Yes, Harry Grant did get that 1 try, so that probably helped him, but I think out of all the hookers that we've got, he's probably the most likely to score a try. Scoot dummy half runs, following through with the ball, always there to pick up, looking for that offload from one of the guys getting tackled in front, quick acceleration, can bulge over the line if he needs to. So I still think if you're in the window of looking for a hooker or upgrading, I still think Harry Grant, you can still get him. It's going to be expensive, but this is probably the last week. And then it's going to be more difficult as the season goes by in order to get him. You're going to have to effectively risk being down on points or trying to find them somewhere else. Tom Starling might be a consideration, but I think Harry Grant's the full package. So, going into the most trades this week. This was a really interesting week because we're seeing, if you look at the trade outs, we're seeing a lot of controversial players getting traded out. Mitchell Moses, he's killing it. Thomas Dearden, having a great season. Yes, he did have that off game and he's going a little bit lower. Is what it is. Josh King is getting traded out. Brad Schneider still has a lot of money to go. Look at that break even of 2. The reality is, the inclusion of Cleary coming into the season has put a spin on everyone's team because everyone's going for him. And I think if you don't get him in this week, you're absolutely bonkers. I think you need to do everything you possibly can in order to get Nathan Cleary in. The reality is, he's the highest scoring beast in this game. We've already seen him play a few games from injury, and he didn't look to have any niggles. He was setting up tries. His team's scoring a lot of points, so he's getting a lot of conversion attempts, penalty attempts. He's getting those extra 4-pointers. He's running the ball. That was the most impressive thing. When he's close to the line, he actually had a fair amount of scoots to the line himself. In fact, he looked pretty threatening to score quite a few times, but the defense isn't falling for it. They know Cleary's game. They know he loves to run the ball. But what that does in the mindset of the defense is that whoever's marking him has to stay on him. So that creates options outside of him where he can get more try assist. He is due for a try, and I think it's extremely likely that we'll see a try from him within the next couple of games, if not this weekend. I think it's just bound to happen. He's just got such a completeness all-round game, and it just puts everyone on the back foot. So I think it's due. I think he's due to score, and that's going to increase, whatever scoring he's doing each game anyway. But if we compare players to stocks, I'm going to use this metaphor for a second. If you compare players to stocks, and we're looking at the stock market, and we're competing brokers, me and you and everyone else as coaches, and I could give you a stock, let's say it's a Microsoft stock, I can give you this stock, I can say, look, to everyone out there listening, I can give you this stock, 95% of the time, it's going to be in the top 10 of returns, each reporting period, each quarter. It will also give you a dividend. And right now, it's at its absolute plump price. Like, he's got a break even of, 83? He last scored 151. If this is not the cheapest basement price for this stock, then I don't know what is. So, if you're dabbling and you're tossing up, should I get Cleary? Should I wait another week? He might lose money. I've seen some other arguments where people are like, well, I've got Schneider. Schneider's still going to go up. He'll go up more money than what Cleary will. So the offset will work because I'll make more money by delaying bringing him in. But we're chasing points. And the reality is, each hour that's passing by up to this round's lockout, people are bringing him in. So if you're on the offside of that fence, of this absolute diamond stock, then you're throwing caution into the wind. You're hoping that your other players can make up the difference, that the other stocks, the other penny stocks, the other mid-weight stocks, the other stocks that are okay, they can get a good return, they're due a good return, they'll hit their break even, they'll get their average. You're kind of hoping that they'll go way beyond that and score abnormally high, which I don't think is a good strategy when it comes to Supercoach. I think when you've got players that are going to give you that return, you've got to staple them in your squad. And Nathan Cleary, for most part, he does two things. He brings you a solid scorer, but he also brings you the most viable captain's choice in all of Supercoach. You just put him in your squad, you put the C on his name, you set and forget for the rest of the season, and you only have to make adjustments at Origin time, potentially if he's injured or gets a suspension, which, look, he's not likely to get suspended. He's not that type of player. He will play Origin, undoubtedly. He looks to be, from what we've seen, he looks to not have been injured. So I think this is it. I think you need to do absolutely anything you can. And so for me, how I made that happen is I traded out Tedesco. We spoke about that last week. Touched on the base that, yeah, Taff, we could bring him in, but we didn't really need him just yet because he hadn't played his 3 games. He is going to score now, and his price will adjust on the 3rd round that he's played. He's negative 33. No-brainer. He's the kicker for that Rabbitohs squad. Kickers are usually good for, depending upon where he's kicking from, whatever, they'll average, that just brings up his scores. It's like an extra bonus. He's $210,000. I think he'd be absolutely insane not to bring him in. So that was my trade. But going back to the Cleary discussion, I think you should do whatever you have to in order to bring him in. Forget Schneider. I think most of us have Schneider. I agree he's going to go up. But you need to get points. In the world that we live in now, and the scores we're seeing in the ranking table, it's all about points. So if you have to trade out a gun, Tedesco in my case, in order to bring in Cleary, you've got to do it. I really think you've got to do it. The other trade that I made this week, so I did my boost. I traded in Katoni Staggs for Firma because I have a lot of second row with dual player or dual position with centre, second row. All I did was trade in Staggs, and then I pushed up Tiago. I could have pushed up Wighton, I could have pushed up, but it doesn't really matter. It depends who I want to play on the day. And got out Firma. Firma seems to have peaked. He's made us some good money. He did some good work in the earlier part of the season. I think the Titans are starting to go a little bit cold on his side of the field. We're starting to see Fifita score a lot more, and when the ball's going to Fifita's side and more opportunities are presented on that side of the field, we're taking away from Firma. That seems to be the strike at the moment with going with their plan that they've had for the last 2 weeks. So, I'm getting rid of Firma. He's peaked. I'm bringing in Staggs. Staggs, again, solid center. He scored back-to-back hundreds. What's his break-even? Break-even is negative 46. He's likely to go up. Again, this is probably the time to get him. The reality is, though, he is a center. He may not score consistently well. You'll see that all the time with your centers, just how the game works. But I tell you what, Staggs up against a COVID-riddled Bulldogs team. If there's any man they're going to go to when they're busting out on the Bulldogs' defensive line, I think it's going to be Staggs to try to create those opportunities, potentially push out that ball to Cobbo, get a try assist, or even bust up on his side of the field and get a try. So I think he's going to go up by quite a bit of money, and I think he's just solid. I think I'm just looking for a solid option in there to lock it. Yeah, he'll most likely play Origin. I can see that happening, but it's the way the baby's going to bubble. Looking at the trade-ins and trade-outs is a lot less relevant this week to other weeks because we are talking about the Nathan Cleary. Look at that. We're at 14,000 trades post the end of this week, not including trades from the prior week or people who held him since round 1. He's lost 47 grand. Now's the time to get him. People are bringing Taff. I think that's the combo. I think most people are going to go Taff and Cleary. So Taff to bring in the cheapie. Cleary to be that polar opposite, the more expensive player. But I think this is it. And the majority out there rule with me is that Taff, Cleary, Staggs seem to be the most trade-ins. All no-brainers. The only concern for my team, and again, I think a lot of these are kind of irrelevant because especially the trade outs, people are doing crazy things in order to bring in Cleary. But if I look at my team for a second, the only concern I really have is my 5'8" slot. I wish Moses or Cleary had the 5'8" role. They're not 5'8s, let's be honest. But I wish they did so I could fill that in. Jack Wighton's been a little bit cold for the last 2 weeks. We could see him score higher come this week, but they are against Penrith. It's going to be tough. But I think that's going to be my next trade. If I can bring in a Dylan Brown somehow, I think that's going to be the way to go. It's going to be very difficult to fill that in to get the price that I want because I only have 30k, so I have to think of other ways to do it. But right now, I'm pretty happy with my team. I'll most likely hold the next week unless there's something blaringly obvious or one of my players goes down and I need to bring someone else in. This is my team. Really happy with it. I hope you guys are as well. Let me know your questions down below. And before we finish, let's just have a look at the #1 ranked team, because why not? We do it every video. It's always good to get a little bit of insight, what's working well for them. It was Billy Goat, but after he scored 1,117, he's been jumped by the Pretenders, who jumped up 110 ranks. And look at this. He's got Sterling and Grant, possibly the 2 best hooker for dollar value at the moment, especially Sterling. Only 5% of owners have him. Pretty solid. He's got Tomalolo. Tomalolo's absolutely hit his stride. That's another option to bring in your front row. I think if I wasn't bringing in Stags, I think Tomalolo would be the next guy I'd want to bring in. He's just killing it. And I think the fact that they've moved him back into the lock position has really benefited his scoring. He's got Max King. Max King is insane. Off the bench is killing it. He's got Haas, so Haas will fill in for King. King will go back to the bench. He's got Talatau, so he made the right choice there, whereas we didn't. We held off. We're a bit stubborn on that one, is what it is. Can't get every cow. It's kind of our policy. Humolo, I'm not even going to try to get that name correctly. Apologies to my Polynesian brothers out there. Yeah, he's playing through the roof. We've got Tago, Aitken, again, another player we've got. Firma, Tuilagi's brought in Cleary. So he capitalized on Cleary last week. He took that punt, even though he was going to score, even though he was going to go down in price. He's taken that advantage of the high scoring, which I don't think a lot of people would have at the same time. He's got Schneider, Munster, Ilias, and then May, Mann, Penasini, Koula, Coates, Cobbo. And look at that, Coates. Didn't play Coates. $422,000 on his bench. He's got all these other guys filling in the gaps. It's pretty insane, isn't it? Cobbo, Hines, and Papenhuyzen. So this guy's actually got a really brilliant team, to be honest. Like, you look across the park, that's a really solid team. In fact, that's a very solid team. There's not many weaknesses. Maybe the second rows can be a bit of a shrug. I know Talakai's killing it in the centers at the moment, isn't he? It's a little bit off center because, you know, proof's in the pudding. He's coming first for a reason. But I think he's made all the right trades, all the right cash cows. I don't think he's really missed out on any key cash cows, to be honest. Couple of offsetting trade differences to us is that we got Brodie Jones as a cash cow, but I don't think a lot of people are that keen on him. Otherwise, pretty solid team. Very solid team. But guys, it's going to be the end of the video. I hope you have a good week. Enjoy the NRL and be watching your Supercoach. Let me know down below what were your trades. I'm excited to see what some of you guys ended up doing. I'd love to hear from anyone who doesn't go with Cleary this week. What are your reasons and what are your other options that you were looking at? Thanks so much, guys. Take it easy. Whoosh.